What's going on, everybody? It's your boy MB, and welcome back to Tacos and Touchdown Live. And we're gonna take it back to 1993 with the episode "The Sandlot." We're doing 90 sports movie review, but before we get into it, I got us welcome back, family of the show. Basically, at this point, my guy Jeff from Jeff Needs Sports. How's it going, Jeff?
Oh, it's great, man. Thanks so much. And thanks for mentioning this came out in 93, the same year I graduated. That really that really put a stamp on how I was feeling about life. But can't complain, man. It's been a cool year. I'm glad you invited me on to do this. Love doing movie podcasts. You know that. I've done several of my own. So, and this is one of literally the legendary movies, of sports fans and kids and people. And I'll tell you some great stories about this movie that even happened just this summer. It's going to be cool.
Yeah, so it's one of those movies. There's like a lot of memorable moments in it and scenes and everything where people still saying like "You're killing me, Smalls," or the one that got to me, that made me laugh. I haven't watched this movie in a while, but until yesterday and today, it was that scene where he's like, it was about him waiting for so long that my clothes are going out of style, and it just made me laugh about that scene.
Yeah, it's just endless. Yeah, my favorite, and what's up? We'll talk about it later. We'll talk about my favorite scene, honestly, maybe of all time in a movie. But when Squints is pulling off, his masterpiece about midway through the movie, and old boy just looks up and goes, "Man, he's in deep shit." it hits. When I was rewatching this, it hit so hard, and I laughed out loud because I think what you forget is this is such a great movie, and most of us, the majority of the times we saw it have been on like cable, and we forget that like it's not that it's anything vulgar, but we forget that the little times that like they slide in a shit or whatever here or there, which is what young kids do. And man, that one just hit me like super hard, man. That was great.
Yeah, because when they kind of take out the cuss words and when kids say it, it's like, okay, that's kind of taking the unnaturalness because at that age you slipped and said it a few times. It's just like that movie just is like how kids were actually. It's not like some made up stuff. You see kids doing stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what's so great about the movie is that it's about a memory. It's about how we remember. Like you're the same way I am. You remember being young and playing a basketball game or a football game or something, and it was like if you tell the story, it was like you were Michael Jordan versus Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You know what I mean? That's not how it looked, but that's how it felt. And that's what this movie is about, is how the kids felt during these times. Like, obviously, we know that the dog wasn't a giant, like, or any of that stuff, but in your mind, that's how these memories are. And that's what that's why it finally hit me last night as I'm watching this movie for I don't know what time, how many times I've seen this movie, and I'm watching it through, and it really hit me. This movie isn't like I think I put it out on Twitter. This movie isn't a kid's movie. It's a movie for adults about being kids. Like it's a movie about being young. It's a movie about your childhood. And I didn't see it. I was 18 years old when this movie came out, and it still hit just as hard. I didn't have to be 10 when this movie came out. I'm sure that was awesome. But it hit just as hard because, when you're 18, you're not that far away from where these kids are. And you remember all this. And I remember, playing ours wasn't Sandlot baseball. Ours was football. It was what you would call backyard football.
Yeah.
But in the summer, we went to the park. Whoever was there, we split up. We had teams, and we played backyard football. It was exactly like this, except for just a different sport. But other than that, and that's the whole point. It doesn't matter if it's baseball, soccer, whatever you did. It's the conversations you have, and it's how serious you take something, and how trivial it is, but how important it is. And this director, these actors, they really caught the spirit of just being young, and the summer's endless. Like when you're like, we were just talking about the summer coming, man, and in Ohio, like you automatically are like, hey, we got about 3 months to get in all the stuff we want to do and have fun. When you're a kid and the summer starts, it could be 100 years long, or it could be tomorrow. You have you don't have a concept of the end. So like every day is just like, it's just an endless summer. It really is. And it's, they really capture it so well. And it was cool. And it never changes. I'm 50 now, almost 50 now, AB. And this movie hits exactly as hard as it did when I was 18 and I first saw it. It's just amazing.
Yeah. It has that nostalgic feel. Like, you don't have to be a kid to recognize this movie, how it is and everything.
Right.
So if y'all hear some noise in the background, I have a little kitten walking around here and stuff right now.
Okay.
He's trying to look at everything. I don't know if he wants to be seen or not, but he's not anything get knocked over, anything. Hopefully not my mic or my light. He's in here. He's an orange cat, so he can get into a lot of.
You got a little rascal in your hands. I got you.
Yeah, so he was watching the movie too.
So what's your oldest memory of this movie? Do you remember when you saw it first or remember it first? Because I know you're definitely a lot younger than me.
I think I was literally the age as those kids are in that movie, because we used to watch a lot of the sports movies a lot in school and stuff when they bring out the big TV when they didn't want to. The teachers didn't want to do the classes and stuff. They're like, "Oh, let's pop in a movie and stuff."
Oh.
I don't know how that movie slide, because when the teacher would freak out when they hear a cuss word, but that was the cool teacher. They're like, okay, just don't repeat any words that you hear in the movie and stuff like that. But
man,
we did. But I remember at that age, and then after that, I watched like if you're like at a hotel or something like that as a kid, you skim through and part of the movie is on. That was like the last time I really seen that movie, but this is like my first time watching it as an adult and everything.
Oh,
I enjoy it. I think that's the best part. When you watch the movie as a kid, you liked it, but you want to see as an adult, do you still feel the same way about this movie?
Because I mean it's a movie. I mean, the adult is the narrator. It's a grown-up narrator telling a story, and it just and a few things I thought about this that really hit me. This movie is so special because this movie's timeless because, and I don't know how they did it. I mean, they made a movie in the 90s about the 60s, but they avoided like there's not a lot of like stuff that's not appropriate now. Like a lot of movies haven't aged well. Like if you made a movie about young, especially this movie is very male centric. I mean, it is about a group of boys, but not in a negative way. It's just telling the story about a group of boys who it's before they're obsessed with, going out and getting girlfriends or dances or any of that. It's just telling a small story about a group of friends, and it's very boy centric. And I don't know what a female's perspective is on this movie. I'm sure it's fine, but it's basically told from like my perspective, like me growing up as, a 11-year-old boy, whatever. But they avoid they're never like rude. They never say inappropriate stuff. I mean, the worst thing they say is famously when they finally draw the line and they tell him he plays ball like a girl. And to be fair, and we just talked about this. If you watch women play sports, that's not an insult, but that was an insult to them. But it doesn't come off as but it never gets it's never homophobic. It's never racial. It's just some kids messing around for a summer. So this movie can be watched forever. You never have to say, like, when I show my grandson this movie, which will be probably in the next few years, I won't have to be like, well, it was a different time, or that's how they used to talk. There's nothing like that in here. It's just a movie about some kids messing around. That's it. And it's so refreshing that somebody had over 30 years ago had the thought to make let's just make a movie it's literally for everyone, anywhere, anytime. And it's not offensive. It's not rude. And it doesn't not include anybody. You know what I mean? It's just a story about these little boys running around for a summer. It's awesome, man. It's so much fun.
Yeah, because you forget that it's actually in the 60s and everything.
Yeah.
But the only time you ever think about it is when the like some of the music and stuff where they're like,
yeah,
"Hey,
which
this
is
is what y'all
cool.
know in the '60s." Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, which is cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and you see
And
the
it's
cars.
it is a baseball movie. Like I think it's cool. So what I was telling you about this summer, it was, I'll tell you quick. I know I'm really over talking you here, AB.
I know
I
you're good.
promise. You know me, but it was really cool. So this summer, we did a couple weeks ago. We go to Mexico. We go to a resort, right? And we go to what they consider on this resort the sports bar. You know, we go to watch then it would have been watching like second round of NBA basketball, whatever. So we go in there, just a bunch of strangers. We're on a resort in Mexico. Nobody's ever met. We're sitting around. Well, the MLB network is on, and the MLB network will show Sandlot a lot. They show baseball movies like Major League, Sandlot, movies like that. So the Sandlot's on, but they're playing like music and stuff in the bar. You know what I mean? It's in the evening. So there's no sound, but we can all watch it. But a group of strangers with no sound on the TV, we all sat and watched the Sandlot together and loved it because we all knew it by heart. We all knew what was happening. We all laughed at the same moments. We were all quoting Smalls. I mean, we could almost, so it was like everybody was on the same page of like, this is great. People from all around the country, the UK, all around, you know, everywhere, or watching the Sandlot with no sound and loved it. And that's just the thing about this movie. It's timeless, and it just crosses every generation. It's just awesome, man. It was so much fun.
Yeah, it's good to see that it's like a universal movie. It's not just America. Like you said, there's people from UK and all around the world that's enjoying the movie.
It's about humans. It's just about humans.
Yeah, because you don't get to see a lot of movies like that, because there'll be some sports movies where you got to explain to somebody, okay, that was back with how they felt in the 60s and 70s.
Yep.
On the list of the movies we have on there is a movie or something like you kind of like to explain, okay, that was in that day and time. Yep. But this movie, you don't, even though it's in the 60s, but everybody is just, like you said, that's a bunch of boys just playing baseball and enjoying the summer and having a good time and stuff. And like a kid moves in from another town and stuff, and he's trying to make friends and everything. It's just
great. Just a great story. Great actors. I mean, as far as kid actors go, this is a great collection of actors. Really, not a lot of. I mean, Smalls probably steals the movie. He's really, and it's cool that that actor is still like, you know, he's very involved in like, especially the social media world and stuff. I forget his name. I apologize to him. Super cool guy. By the way, somebody suggested to me that me and you ought to get one of the cast of this movie on and interview him. And I think we ought to try to do that. They asked me this morning. I was like, you know what? We ought to try to get somebody on there. But the kids were great. Like Smalls, what's cool about him, he's the actor that holds the movie together, but he's also the player that holds that team together. Like Benny the Jet is by far the best player on the team, but Smalls is the glue. You know what I mean? He's the catcher. He's behind the plate. He's the one, you know, he's the one running the show. He's the one calling the shots. You know, he can, you know, they're never worshiping Benny, even though they know he's the best player. You know what I mean? It's that guy really does a great job. I thought the kid, you know, that plays Smalls was great and coming off as like didn't know anything and all that. And I thought it's also cool how they let, you know, the outsider in. There was everything was like, come play, we'll teach you how. They were nice. They didn't pick on him in a negative way. They really, and you know, that's also something that hit me. Like I was a step kid, you know, a divided family and the whole thing. And so that's another thing about the movie that like, I kind of got, you know, where he was coming from, you know, with the step relationships and stuff. I thought they captured that really well without like mashing it. I thought his mom, Karen Allen, did great. She was amazing in it. And she's somebody that I grew up with from Indiana Jones, you know, in the early 80s. So she's somebody I knew my whole life. And so that was really cool. Even last night, I'm like, oh man, I forgot Karen Allen shows up. Like what a great movie mom. Yeah, it was fantastic. I just had so much fun. And then, I mean, I don't know when we're going to talk about the scenes, because this movie is really just cut up into a bunch of stories. Like there are just a bunch of days and they tell one story and they do an awesome job. So what's cool about this movie, you could just pick any of those stories and just watch that as like a little 15-minute movie and you're satisfied. But I mean, you got the chase, you got the squints makes the move.
You want to get the squints.
I can't wait till we talk about Squints, my man, the legend. You got the night game, which is I thought that was one of the coolest baseball scenes ever shot, that really caught like the beauty of being a kid. Yeah, you know what I mean? And you got all that. And of course you got the Beast, when we meet the late great James Earl Jones. I mean, just on and on and on, man. Like, whew, what a movie. What a ride.
Yeah, they had a lot of great actors in there. They had Dennis Leary in there that played his
Dennis Leary did a great job.
Yeah.
And that was before Dennis Leary. Like, you wouldn't remember this because, you just weren't around. But, like, when Dennis Leary was in this movie, he was coming off being, like, the shock comic at the time. Like, he did, like, crazy stuff on MTV and stand up. But when nobody had seen him throttle it down for a movie like this is before he did, like, where he was the firefighter movies he did. Like, to see Dennis Leary in his role was really weird, and he nails it. He really nails it.
Yeah, he did a really good job. And then you kind of seen that type of character in some other movies he did and stuff like that, kind of being like the straightforward guy and stuff. Like you said, he was a comic at first, and now he would do serious roles. Yeah, he did Ice Age and the Sabretooth and everything else.
He wound up being a really, really good actor and stuff like that. And this kind of kicked off like the other side of his career that's lasted. I mean, he made a heck of a run out of it.
Yeah, he's had since his movie's 30 years old, so he's been doing it for almost 4 decades.
Oh yeah,
4 decades basically.
Yeah.
Because when I think about it, I'm like, when you think of the 90s, I'm like, dang, 1993, that's 32 years now.
Yeah, trust me. I graduated in 93. I know exactly how long it's been.
I keep forgetting you said that.
It goes quick, man.
Yeah. But one of the scenes I want to talk about, since we already kind of talked about it, let's talk about Squint and the Wendy's scene. That was
it's perfect.
Yeah. It almost makes you feel like you were there when you seen it. It's like you were there as a kid.
And it's And again, I grew up in a town that had the local pool. We all went there. We all worshiped the lifeguard that was probably 3 years older than us. But that's another thing about this movie. It's really about the divide. It's really about the jump of puberty. That's really what it's about.
Yeah.
It's about the difference between an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old. You know what I mean? Like right in there. Yeah. But that's a Grand Canyon in human years. And we all remember being obsessed with, like, Wendy was probably maybe a sophomore in high school, maybe a freshman, but to these kids, she was Bo Derek, Brooke Shields. I'm timing that back in the day, like, but it's what we all dreamed of, us dumb little boys. This is what we dreamed of, is what Squints did, and he pulls it off.
Yeah, it's like she was like one in the like you said, Brooke Shields or anything like in those movies. Yeah. But she's just a sophomore. But you're
just a kid too.
Yeah, you're just in 5th or 6th grade, so you're like, oh my god.
And by the way, shout out, like she was and I'm sure she still is. The actress was a beautiful woman, pulls it off like perfectly, and looks every bit the part of just like, like the high school girl that these kids would have worshipped. I mean, and the actor that plays Squints, just it was genius. And when it first happens, the first time you see the movie, you don't really know what's going to happen.
Yes.
It really was it is that big of a deal the first time. And if you haven't saw this movie, by the way, like I suggest pausing this and going to watch it and coming back. But when Squints is, when all that's happening, you don't know. And then when Squints, famously looks up and opens his eyes and then kisses Wendy. Now, again, this is where this movie tiptoes the line, because it's not cool to kiss anyone without their consent. But there is a world to where we can all understand that maybe if a dumb little 11-year-old does it to a high school girl, it's probably not the end of the world. Now, she has the right to be mad. They kicked him out of the pool for the summer, which was cool. You know what I mean? Like they did get in trouble for it, but it's not the end of the world. Like there can be a little bit of trickery in the world and not, you know what I mean? I normally don't promote stuff like this, but as I watched it, I'm like, you know what? It's fine. Like, you know what I mean? Sometimes people do dumb stuff and, you know, like I say, Wendy snatched him up, throws him out, but man, what a move by Squints, man. My man Squints. I don't even know how good of a ball player he was. You know what I mean? Like I don't, you know, I don't even know position. He feels like he was probably an infielder. He's kind of wiry.
Yeah, I say infield. I think he was an infielder that I remember, but it just what he did in that scene was like one of the epic things. Like you said, it was tiptoeing the lines, but he's an 11-year-old, so you're not too mad, and it can go into this time and day where it's not going to be offensive. Like
exactly. It doesn't jump off. That was cool. The whole scene. He gives the speech, and here's another great thing about that scene when you're listening to Squints tell his friends about how he feels about Wendy. He says, you know, I've been planning this for years, and you know he hasn't. But that's how you feel. That's the whole thing about when you're a kid. You're the percentage of your life, like one summer is such a big percentage of your life. Obviously, he hasn't been playing it for years. He's probably known Wendy for maybe one other summer, but in his world, it's his whole life. He's been in love with Wendy Peppercorn. So I thought that was a great touch by the movie makers and the writers and the narrator to really express like how big their world feels compared to, we know it's like if we walk by a public pool and see a bunch of kids, to us it's a blip. But to them, you know, it's a whole world, you know, and I thought they really pulled off the public pool and the importance of this moment for Squints and how he finally built up to it and you know, pulled off one of the great moves of all. And it worked, by the way. If you stick around, Squints and Wendy get married, live happily ever after.
Hey, it all works out for Squints. And the other thing is, when you think of like when you were as a kid, when you went to like those big public pools, you think of like these big mountainous places. But when you go back as an adult, you're like, man, this place is kind of smaller than I remember.
You're exactly right. But it's a giant world when you're there. You might as well be in the ocean. Like, and that's what this movie captures the scale of their world so well. It's just amazing.
It's like we always keep bringing up, this movie is an ageless movie, like that can go into the next generation, next generation. But you kind of, one thing, I don't want to sound old, but you don't, when you see baseball fields, basketball courts, you don't see kids out there as much as you used to do, like when you were playing basketball and all those sports anymore. It just kind of feels like they're just old relics out there.
I think that a lot. Yeah, that's very true. That I drive, and it makes me sad. I drive by a lot of empty basketball courts, and I'm like, I don't understand, you know, what's going on here. I'm not judging. I'm not one of these that's going to sit here and say young people this and that. All I know is that it's weird because in the summer that was another thing. It was football, and then as we got older, we went right to the basketball court. I mean, that's where you hung out. You know what I mean? The girls might be there watching. You might be like, hey, after this game, well, you know what I mean? You're all stinky and sweaty. Nobody cares. Or you might like, it was cool. Like, here's a great memory. And I'm sure you've done this. Like, you're at the court and you're just playing, like everybody's routine is. So it's odd or even numbers. And you're like, I'll sit out for this one. You go ahead and play. But then there was like, it might be a friend or a new person or like, so whatever. And so then you hang out on the sidelines, like while somebody else is getting a run, and you might have a great conversation with a girl or a boy or whatever. Even those moments are great. There's little conversations you have in the midst of all this. And I thought they pulled that off well too. The conversations that these kids had was great. You know, another great scene was like when the rival baseball team shows up, you know, from the other side of town, and they're all wearing uniforms and they get into like the arguing match, but like you can tell that they're all cool with each other. They really they probably like go to school together. It wasn't a real fight. Like this is another one. Nobody said anything like offensive until Smalls says you play ball like a girl. But something that's another line that we talk about that like you shouldn't say that because like it was never an insult to say somebody like did something like a girl, because I'm like, man, girls kick ass. Like so I never let him do that. But that's what the beauty of this is. You realize how silly he is for saying it. Like, it doesn't come off. Like, it comes off of like, Smalls, you're such a dummy. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't even come off as really an insult, but the other kid, and then the look on the kids' faces, the other team's faces when he says it, they're like, oh, whoa. It's great. The actors did a great job. And then they play the baseball game, and oh my gosh, man. Like, another like 15 minutes of just awesome.
Yeah, it was like excellently written. Like, the kids are their commentary back and forth, and it doesn't feel like something they just wrote and didn't know how to be a kid, because it just felt like they just let these kids go and just say, you know what, you don't need no script, just freestyle.
You know, there might be something to that. I would love to like look into maybe some of the documentaries about this, because that's how it felt. Great job by both sides. Then they play the baseball game. You know, our Sandlot guys kicked the crap out of the the team with the. They did another good job. Look, the team had the uniforms and like the protective gear. And even though like it was implying that like, you thought because you had all the uniforms and everything, you were going to beat us, but they didn't step on that. And they didn't like make fun of the kids for wearing protective gear and stuff. That's just how their team was, so it's, in a different movie, they might make fun of the other team, in a certain way, but they didn't. That was just how that team played. And the Sandlot guys didn't play that way. That's all there was. It's no different. I played slow pitch softball one summer. It's probably been almost 20 years ago now. We had a season, and the team we played was sponsored by a local fireworks store. And the team we played, the players were all Mennonite. I don't know if you have Mennonite or Amish, a big community down there, but it's a pretty big community here. Well, they don't wear it's part of their thing. They always wear like jeans and stuff. So this team walks in, they're all wearing blue jeans and t-shirts. That's it. We're wearing our shorts and Under Armour, whatever everybody's wearing. Mm-hmm. And this team of blue jeans beat the snot out of us. They hit the ball. Every time they hit the ball, they hit it hard. They ran fast. And it looked exactly like what the Sandlot did to these kids. And it always remembers me the time that the Amish softball team smashed us. and then they're so polite and everything. And then all they did was just like shook our hands and were super nice about it. And I was like, we just got raped by these guys in blue jeans. So you never judge somebody by what they wear, their uniform. You have no idea what's going to happen until it happens.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine because they'd be wearing those like well-starched jeans and everything. So I couldn't imagine running and everything with those on. But they hit y'all with the Larry Fitzgerald approach, shaking your hand, saying good game and everything.
Oh, yep. Not an unkind word said, as they beat the brakes off of us. They just did their business and went home. And I was like, and that's what it looked exactly like the scene from Sandlot. Being like, we can't stop it. Like, we can't stop this avalanche.
Man, I'm just imagining that what you were describing of like, man, I'd be thrown off, and then they're not talking mess to you. Like, I'm not used to
exactly. Yeah, and you couldn't. Obviously, you had to respect. That's how they handled themselves. So you couldn't say anything. So you just took your beating, and you're like, thanks. See you later. Good game. We just got worked. Good. It was made. But Sandlot, I did appreciate the Sandlot guys, man. They talk some smack, and I appreciate that. I was kind of not in a negative way. I was a mouthy kid, you know what I mean? Like, and sometimes I lose, sometimes I win. But so I was more of I probably lean more towards either I can never decide a Squints or a Smalls. I was right in that area. I was kind of devious like Squints and had an eye, at a young age like Squints. Like I might have, but I don't know if I could have pulled off. I wouldn't have had the guts to pull off the peppercorn moment. Yeah. But I was definitely an irritant like Smalls. Like I scratched, I dug at people. Like I got some reaction out of them. Who do you feel like you were most like out of the gang?
I had a little Squints in me a little bit.
Okay, really?
But I didn't have I wouldn't have did the Wendy peppercorn thing.
No, most people wouldn't. That's legendary, AB.
Yeah.
Most of us aren't Squints.
Yeah, and then I guess I was I had like 3 of them in there in that the kid that moved in, I had that in there because we moved a lot when I was a kid.
Okay.
Yeah, that, him, and dang. There was probably a third guy, but those are like the main two.
I see. Like, yeah, you had to kind of be taken into the group that was already established.
Yeah, that was kind of my thing from moving to Georgia to Oklahoma back to Texas.
Okay.
So I kind of just got implemented into groups or something like that.
Yeah, I would have been more like it, and I'm still like that. Like somebody, because it was in the summer, like somebody's cousin might come to stay with them. You know what I mean, for a weekend. But like that's another thing. Like that weekend felt like you knew that kid. Like by the end of the weekend, you were best friends. You knew each other for 12 hours. You know what I mean? But like you spent a few hours on a court talking or whatever, and you're like, oh, we're gonna be best friends forever. You might never see him again, but at that moment, and I was more of a like, we'll figure it out. You know what I mean? Like the Sandlot game was. I was very open to like, new people and stuff like that. Welcoming. I was a welcoming guy.
Yeah, and when you think about like watching this thing, you're like, man, I miss those summers more than like the summers in my adulthood life.
Yeah,
because it was just fun. It was just doing simple things like playing baseball, basketball, or just doing things outside that you.
Yeah.
I remember I enjoyed those
exactly.
times.
That's it. Yeah, and the movie captures it. Man, and you know what? Like you said, let's talk about the night baseball game. I thought that was amazing.
That was when you think that that was the music of the America song, and then you got the fireworks.
But the Ray Charles version was very important. Charles. That was the perfect. Like that's another thing they chose to like purposely like bridge the gap. Like it here's I'm not, and it's not even an American thing. If you're a person and you don't like the Ray Charles version of that, of God Bless America, I don't know what to tell you. That's fine. I'm not saying you have to, but I'm saying like that it's Ray, man. Like that was a great song. The fireworks are going off. They're playing, under the lights, and then like when they all stop to watch the fireworks, and then Benny, like he's still, wanting to play because that's who he is. That's a great scene. Just the kids, like, just little things like Smalls making the hot dog real quick on the way to the course. But another thing they captured in that moment. The parents are never really in focus. If you remember, like the Smalls parents, you kind of see, but really the other parents are just kind of objects. And so when all the kids are going to the park, that's how it was. Like the parents are like, whatever, see you later. You know what I mean? Like they're just there. And I thought they did a great job of capturing what it's like for kids to like kind of have their independence, even if it's just for an evening. You know what I mean? Like you felt like you were your own person, even though you're not. You're going to go,
and,
whoever you live with or whatever. But
because at that time as a kid, you're not remembering what your parents said. Like, be back at this time. It's just like in this movie, they're all background characters or noise. And one thing I love about this movie, and I know a lot of movies have, is always that with kids, they always got the school bully. I'm glad this movie didn't have one. I don't know. I'm just tired of seeing school bullies and stuff.
Yes, there was no bad. There really wasn't a villain. It was it's a pretty feel good movie, but that's fine. There, like you say, that's what really stands out is like it's kind of a unique movie. It really is. Like there's not a lot of movies that capture. There's not a big like nothing. Even the stuff that happens isn't that serious. You know what I mean? Like when I first saw the movie and it started, I thought there was going to be like the stepdad was honestly going to be like a bad person. And it didn't wind up that way. It was just, there was a misunderstanding, but it wasn't that big of a deal. There was never like, the biggest problem they had was losing their baseball over the fence. But if you really think about it, that's not a big problem. That's what's so cool about the movie is that it's the end of the world to these kids.
Yeah.
But the people walking down the sidewalk are like, it's not that big a deal. I'll get you a baseball. Like, you know what I mean? So that's what's so neat that there wasn't real problems. It wasn't like it didn't. I'm sure there's a different version of this movie to where it's like we have to raise money to save the Sandlot.
Yeah.
This movie is more like this Sandlot will be here forever. Nothing will ever change, even though we know it will. But that's not what the movie's about. It's about kids. The future is wide open. They don't think about things like that. That's what's so perfect about it.
Yeah, that's true, because what you just said, if they had to raise funds or something like that, you basically switching it to a Hallmark movie that's been redone a thousand times, and they probably got one coming out soon.
Yeah, precise. Or I don't know. They got to what it would have been. There's a different world to where this movie is. We're trying to save the Sandlot. Yeah. They meet the James Earl Jones, and he gives them $1 million, and it saves it. Like, it would have been something like that's not what they did here. They just wanted a baseball. That's all they wanted was a baseball to keep playing. That's it. That's the end of their world. Most important thing was just playing baseball, and it's what's so freaking cool about it. And
yeah, that's why. Oh, my bad.
No, go ahead, man.
You don't have to deal with an antagonist that's saying, I'm going to tear down this field to build this big old building and stuff where I can make millions of dollars like a lot of other movies.
Precisely. And that's what most of these movies are. And it never happens. It's literally just telling a story about a kid's having some fun for a month or summer, whatever. That's what's so cool.
It's a well-written movie, and I actually did a little research, finding that the narrator is actually the co-writer of the movie, and also let me make sure.
Okay.
Yeah, he was the co-writer of this movie, so that and the way he described it, like, okay, you can see he had passion in this movie.
He's amazing.
Yeah, he did a great job. And since we're in the 90s, what did you think of like some of the 90s slapstick humor you've seen in this movie? Like, when the baseball hit the kid in the face, it kind of went boom.
You're right. That was very 90s. Now that was cool. I think that's where they had to, that's the part of the movie that is also the young people are going to enjoy a little bit more, as to where a 10-year-old's not going to dig in on the stepfather relationship like I did. Not going to dig in on, if you really listen to, I forget what was I keep calling him James Earl Jones, but what was the old man's name? For some reason I'm forgetting.
I had it on my phone.
Yeah. But when he's talking about he's telling the story, he's telling a really important story that I dig into and as an adult, but a kid doesn't have to care about that because he's going to watch this movie 100 times. And then as he gets older, he's going to pick up the nuances of it as to where a 10-year-old is going to be like, that's funny, the ball hit him, or they get the erector set out to save the baseball. That stuff's going to be awesome. What I mean, to them. And then when they get older and have done everything that me and you have done, then you can reflect back as an adult and be like, man, there was nothing like that time me and my friends did this, or it was nothing like, the time I scored 3 touchdowns in backyard football. Nobody cared. I did. It's important at the time. You know what I mean? So that's what's cool, is that you get to pick and choose. It does have a 90s feel, but in a good way. The 90s actually made a lot of really good movies. They made a lot of fun movies. It was a good time to go to the movies. You would just go to the movies and see this. We don't go to the theater like we used to. You would just go to the theater and see this 3 times because it costs you $2, and stuff like that. So, that also, feels good to me too, of kind of strolling down memory lane.
Yeah. Seeing 90s explosion. I don't know what's about them, but they're hilarious. I don't care what any movie they are. It's you remember when they were trying to get the ball back and everything.
Yes.
And the freaking vacuums,
the sweeper,
and it looked like
they jump out of it.
It was freaking watching any explosive movie with Sylvester Stallone, but with
yes,
that's
great point.
What it was.
Great point. And what's cool about that is you can also choose to obviously we know that didn't explode like that.
Yeah.
But in their mind, that's how a kid remembers that. Oh my gosh, it exploded. You know what I mean? And that's what's important. They told the story of how the kids felt, not a factual story. Great scene, everything. And this is how they're all working together. And the little arguments they have, and each one of them will tell the other one to they're kind of always digging at each other, but they're always on each other's side. You know what I mean? Like really, really good friends, but because that's what good friends do. You know what I mean? Like you're there, but you also bust each other's chops and take digs, but you're also they work together, they think together. I mean, really, really tells a great story of friendship. But that's what I'm talking about. But then if a 9-year-old watches this, they can just enjoy watching him chase the dog, or get chased by the dog. You don't have to know, the deeper stuff of it until you get older. It's got so many layers, just layer after layer after layer.
Because speaking of the dog, but when you first seen the over exaggeration dog, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's the 90s. It's like this big old puppet dog
in the head. Yeah. But it worked so well though. It worked so well now because that's how they saw it in their imagination. And we all remember, I remember, having neighbors that are we had a neighbor. Okay. So here's another story. So in the neighborhood that we ran around in, there was a house and it had a green, like a Granny Smith green apple tree behind it. Right. Mm-hmm. And rightfully so, the people that owned this house, everybody was like, do not go over there and get an apple. Cause we just, when we were kids, just whoever had apple trees, we just went over and got apples. That's what we ate that day. I mean, we did it all the time. Just, I lived in a rural town and that's what we did. But it was don't go. So when it would start getting dark in the summer, we would get together and devise plans and how to sneak over into their yard and get a Granny Smith apple. That was the holy grail of apples, is to get over there and get one of these delicious Granny Smith apples. You know what I mean? So in my mind, we were like the Navy SEALs trying to sneak into this yard. We used to come up with plans of hey, you go to the front yard and ring the doorbell, and then we'll run in the backyard and grab an apple and all these things. You know what I mean? At this same age, as to where the people in the house had no idea that we're doing it. Probably really didn't care if we got an apple. I don't even know if it was true that they cared, but that was what spread amongst the kids, is that oh man, if you go get an apple, they'll call the cops.
Yeah.
And so it became a legend. And so then it became a challenge. And that's what the beast was. As the story got passed down, I'm sure the dog got bigger and meaner and all these things. And in their head, they believe that's what this dog looked like. Oh man. So such good stuff.
Yeah, and finding out it was just an ordinary Mastiff. Most time they're the biggest friendly teddy bear dogs.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, and by the way, they did cut that apple tree down, by the way, years later. And I was like, really? After all the work we put into stealing your apples, you cut it down anyway. You really didn't love it near as much as we thought.
Could you imagine that they could have just asked? We already knew they were
100%
apples this whole time.
100%.
But it's a good thing y'all didn't know just as a kid, because y'all devised plans and everything, like in the movies.
Yep.
And stuff. And that's one of the things about being a kid. I might just know where compared to that, because when I was in middle school, there was a shortcut to get to the school and stuff. We always used to take it and everything, but everybody said, don't go that way because this old man is going to come chase you and everything. So we always kept going, but it was just one day he brought out his dog. He said, you kids get off my lawn. The kid. So half of us went the other way. The other one went the other way. So the old man in the electric wheelchair chasing the other kids, and we're all getting chased by the dog for about 2 blocks. And I probably ran a 4.2 that day, because I don't remember what the size of this dog was, but it was 5 or 6 of us running the 4.2s at this time. And it stopped chasing us at the end of the stop sign, and we were drenched in sweat. We got to the school y'all good with we just got chased by a dog.
Yeah, see, and that memory will always last. You had a little Benny the Jet moment. I see it.
Yeah, when that dog started barking and running, I definitely had my Benny the Jet moment. I can laugh at it now, but I did go back there one time, but I was doing some looking both ways, checking. But I think the old guy just gave up. He said, you know what? I don't even care no more. I think he had his laugh seeing us run. All 10 of 5 was going this way and 5 was going that way.
That's great. Yeah, see, that's the whole point. That's what this movie captures, is what a big moment that was to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like somebody probably saw y'all doing that and didn't care. Was like, whatever. But to you at the moment, it's the height of adventure. Just like us stealing the apples. Like, you know what I mean? Like if somebody walks over and grabs an apple, it's not that big a deal. But the thought and the process that we put into it is what made it. And that's just like, the baseball games, it really is amazing how this movie captures that.
Yeah. If y'all would have known that y'all could have got the apples, y'all probably wouldn't have probably even thought about them. You're like, oh, that's
You're right. Fun. No, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Going back on memory lane, I almost forgot some things I was going to talk about this movie.
Oh no, go ahead, man. Rip them off.
Let me see. Yeah, we kind of talked about, at first I wasn't like the biggest fan of the parents, but then when you kind of get to know them, like the mom just wanted him to meet new friends and everything, and the dad was busy and everything. Did they ever say what he was doing as a job, or they just kind of went like, he travels around the world?
I think they do touch on it, or do they? He had to go for like, he wasn't a doctor. It was something like that. Something businessy. Yeah, I do forget to what he did, but he had to take off for business or whatever, because his the Smalls' real dad had. They don't dig into it a lot, but again, it's one as you get older. But like his real dad died, and then that was his stepdad, and that's like. I think that's one of those things that the writer, director, everybody kind of let that, if that mattered to somebody, then that was cool, but they didn't push it on anybody.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's a lot of people who would sit here and watch this movie and that would be something they took away and it meant a lot to him, but he didn't hit you over the head with it. He's like, I'll put it out there, trying to give you like a base of where this kid's coming from. You know what I mean? He's lost his father and his mom's moved on and, and all these things. But if you don't care about that, you don't have to. It doesn't steer the movie. It's just part of it.
Yeah, you're not getting the whole scene of like how much he hates his stepdad or nothing like that, like what you usually get in movies.
Right. And then like when he loses the baseball, his Babe Ruth baseball, that's stuff that really hit with me from having a stepdad and kind of, for lack of a better term, being worried about watching my step a little more than I probably did with my real dad. So the whole like stealing his baseball thing and worrying about getting in trouble and then the panic. But what was like, that's the scene that meant a lot to me when his friends had his back. They're like, hey, we'll go get a baseball. I'll sign it. Benny signs the baseball to fake it. Like they all were like, they didn't abandon him in his time of need. They were there for him. That was like, that's something that personally that really meant a lot. All that stuff that happened there, but it all bridged the gap between him and his stepdad and kind of kick down that door. So like all that stuff is cool. But again, if you don't care about it, you don't have to, it's not that much of the movie. You can get up and go get some popcorn or take a whiz or something and you miss it. And you can just watch, and you know what I mean? Like it doesn't drive the movie. It's just part of it, part of this kid's story. But for someone like me, like that was a huge part of like how important that movie was to me at that time. So like, it's just everybody takes away. I'm sure there's lots of characters in the movie that resonate with somebody for whatever reason. I'm sure there's probably a mom in the movie that relates to the mom in the movie. And this movie is really important to her from her perspective, or a stepdad, and so forth.
Yeah.
Or an old man in a wheelchair that chases kids.
So he's probably like, I like that.
He probably just wanted to be friends, AB. He just wanted to be friends.
He had a funny way of showing it when he's seen all of us.
Can we talk about what a great choice James Earl Jones was for that?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if there's a more perfect choice.
Yeah. Like what they thought was a mean old man, but he was just he loved baseball. He was a part of baseball. I want to give the full thing about it, but I want people to see that part and everything. But and when you think of James Earl Jones, he's like on the Mount Rushmore of like voices, like narration in movies, and Morgan Freeman and others and stuff like that.
And just a cool dude, made a bunch of, it was always a great character in the movies he was in. As a young man was a He played. Oh shoot, not. I wanted to say Joe Louis, but much farther back than that. I apologize for not remembering the boxer's name in the Jack Johnson. Jack Johnson, I believe.
Yeah, Jack Johnson.
Yeah, so I mean, and he was a big, strong athlete then, and played that, and then all through his careers played a bunch of great characters, and just was the perfect pick for that movie, for that speech. And like I said, like you said, really dropped a lot of great historical. I think that was. It didn't hit me until last night. The one thing that doesn't age very well, only because it's been 100 years, is the importance of Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
It was a good joke with the Baby Ruth stuff and all that, but I can understand how a young person that might be a little bit lost on him because it's been 100 years.
Yeah.
But then it paid off when he's telling the story, and there's it's a very important part of history about Babe Ruth, and then you have the Negro Leagues going on at the same time and all that stuff. So that they built up and it paid off, because that's always been a thing. And I think that once you see everything as a whole, you understand, like, they had to use Babe Ruth because then they had to show, like, if you really want to dig into the baseball of it and the history of it, there's the Babe Ruth era versus who got to play and all these things. So there's all this stuff that if you want to dig into with a shovel as you get older, you can, but you don't have to. So it was really important stuff that they pulled off in there.
Yeah, they put in like what they written in there, and they brought the history of baseball in there. So there's some actual facts in there, and that was very great by the writers and stuff, blending what they 100%. Wrote and bringing in with baseball history and everything. You don't have to be a baseball aficionado to appreciate what you've seen in that scene with James Earl Jones and Benny.
And honestly, like, watched it, Benny the Jet Rodriguez playing we wouldn't even notice, a Rodriguez playing baseball. But when I'm in the 60s, Benny the Jet Rodriguez playing baseball would have been noticeable. You know what I mean? Like, non-white players hadn't been around that long when this movie takes place. And like, we wouldn't notice that. And as a kid, wouldn't think about it because we grew up in a baseball that everybody played. But that's still another thing. I thought that was a nice touch that they used, a Rodriguez, and then it pays off when they show the older. I thought the great scene with the older Rodriguez stealing home. I think that really just topped the movie off, like, perfectly. Everything paid off. You found out that they remained friends. Benny had his career. Smalls, wind up being a part of baseball the rest of his life. All those things really paid off, in the end of the movie.
Yeah, it ended well because, a lot of movies, it'd be a really great movie, but they don't know how to finish it, and they just kind of ended off on like a terrible cliffhanger that's never going to be fixed.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Like, yeah, it looks great too. The one baseball scene at the end when Benny's playing for the Dodgers looks great. Like, it's just a really good. I know it's only a couple minutes, but it's a great looking baseball scene and sounded great. And I mean, like you said, it just finished it off perfectly. It really did.
Yeah, because when you see kind of those cutoff scenes, like when they show play, like, I don't know if actors or they get pro players, it kind of looks a little jumbled up and it looks kind of fake. But this one looked like it was like a legit scene from a baseball.
Yes,
the Dodgers. They did a great job in that.
Well, that was cool that they used the Dodgers. It fit the movie and all this stuff. But yeah, that's all so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And another fun fact I found about it is the one that played Benny, the older version of him when he got older was actually the actor's older brother that played him in that role.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. That's super cool. He looked like a ball player. I figured you was going to tell me he was a ball player.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I wanted to do the research. Like, what he looked familiar, but he was an actor and everything. But I thought there was like some legit baseball player that played back in the 90s or something. Because that's what you usually get.
I thought, Yeah, because he didn't have to talk or anything. I figured they went and got a, maybe a, third, a AAA player or something to so it looked real. But that's cool, man.
Yeah, that's usually what they have for this. Yeah, shout out that. It was just a fun movie to watch, and I'm trying to make sure I'm not missing anything and everything.
It's endless. I'm sure somebody's talking about the tobacco scene when they all got sick.
Oh, that's the scene.
That's something stupid kids do. You got the opening baseball scene, hitting the cover off the ball. Hitting the cover off the ball was fantastic. I mean, it's just endless.
Speaking of that tobacco scene, what are your thoughts on when you see movies where you see a bunch of people just randomly just throwing up everywhere?
Didn't love it. It worked. The scene worked. I've been there. I remember being dumb and making decisions, but it was hard. Like I started being like, okay, that's enough.
They overdid it with that.
Yeah. One who, when I was 12 years old, I was in Montana, and my friends took me to the state fair of Montana. And I got sick on a ride that looks a lot like the one in Sandlot, and I did puke in public. I got off the ride and I couldn't hold it, and I threw up like right in the what do you call it, the midway or whatever you call it in the fair. So I felt for the kids, man. I've been there.
Yeah, and when you do something like that, you're just like, I just want to go home now. You can't just act like it didn't happen, and just seeing the scene where they have it looked like they just had they just poured Wolf brand chili on themselves.
It was a little gross, but it was cool. It was cool. And again, that's stuff that you do. It's just dumb stuff that you do. Yeah. And that's what this movie's about. It's about innocent mistakes, not mistakes like it wasn't like they decided to shoot up heroin that night or something. they chewed some tobacco and got sick. End of story. Yeah. You know what I mean? They didn't have to have life-changing consequences. And again, they did such a great job of like not having any of the parents interlude on this stuff. Like the kids were living their own world. It was like, we used to have a really cool set of parents, me and my friends, and one of our friends' parents, they would take us places, and they were a little like older than average parents. They were probably, parents, let's say parents, if parents are 30 years old, they were closer to like 50, whatever, it didn't matter, but they would just go chill out. So they would take us wherever as a group of friends and just turn us loose and then take us home. We just meet them back wherever. So for like 3 hours, if we went to the fair, if we went to the mall, if we went to Kings Island, whatever, we were on our own, just like these kids were. So like, but and then they took us home at the end, but they never knew what we did or what happened. Yeah. But we'd come back, just don't do anything really stupid. You know what I mean? Like go embarrass yourself in front of the girls, or you know what I mean? Like, do something, whatever. But we're all just going to go home. We're just a bunch of kids. So like, that's what I mean. It was like, it was harmless mistakes. And that was really fun.
Yeah. They weren't mistakes where it's going to mess up their life for the rest of their life. Like, okay, they did they did some little chewing tobacco and stuff, and they threw up, and the only thing they really wanted to is like, oh, I don't feel too good the next day. That's about it, because
they still said that was the only day they took off all year.
Yeah,
they said that was the only day they missed all year. The next day, they said that.
Yeah, that is true.
One day off that summer.
Yeah, and they didn't milk it after that.
They said that was the only day we didn't. The next day was the only day we didn't play all year.
Yeah. So, when I thought about that, like I tried a little bit of chewing tobacco. It was the most disgusting thing I ever tried, and I never.
Me too. I've been there.
Yeah.
I've barely used any tobacco in my life, but when I was young, I tried it and got sick a couple times or whatever. Like, looking back, I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, you know what I mean? Like, but again, it didn't change. It didn't ruin my life. It just, it didn't stick with me. You know what I mean? Not making light of people that have trouble with it, any of that stuff. But this movie's not about that. It's not about teaching you a lesson or anything. It's just, they tried something and got sick. End of story. End of story.
Yeah. Cause basically when you see people chewing tobacco, like all the top baseball players, or you see the coaches, they make it look cool, but when you try, you're like, oh, this stuff is disgusting.
Yeah. Then that's exactly what happened. Yeah, you're right. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah,
Pete Rose, man, he used to He used to have a face full of that stuff when he played baseball. Holy cow.
I
When I
think that's
grew
what I
up,
was.
baseball players had all kinds of chew in their mouth. Hell, they still smoked, AB. When I was growing up, they smoked in the dugout. That's a true story.
Yeah, you see pictures, and then when people do compare and contrast with how players look now and then, but you got to realize you see Ken Stabler and them smoking and getting
Yep.
and plunking
Len
down there.
Dawson. Len Dawson.
Just,
Yeah, Stabler, Dawson, smoking on the sidelines. Like, it's a different. Imagine Joe Burrow just lighting up a heater in the middle of a football game. Can you imagine?
yeah, you're like, man, these guys must be in their 40s, and then when you look at it, you're like, no, they're 28 now. Look, they have big goatees, look, the
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan goatees and
Yeah.
stuff, just smoking a cigarette. Just like, this is
So
life.
for most of my probably up until I was probably in my 20s, you could still like advertise a lot of that stuff on like billboards and stuff. So like athletes would advertise, like when I was growing up, athletes advertised chewing tobacco on TV. Yeah. Like it was just something they did. And beer. Athletes advertised chewing tobacco and beer like constantly.
Yeah, because I remember, I don't know how I got this shirt. I was like 10 or 11, but I had a Camel shirt, and I thought it was the best shirt. Had a little pocket protector.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because you got people got Camel points, man. They could order T-shirts, and
yeah,
there was like if you smoked enough Camels, man, you could get like a jukebox or something. Like shit was wild.
Yeah, because
dude, the '80s were proof. You smoke anywhere in the '80s. You smoke in a hospital in the '80s.
That's because I remember because my uncle used to smoke Camels, and I think he just gave us some shirts and stuff. And I just remember that Camels, the Marlboro shirts, Marlboro Man. Yep. I remember that, the magazines.
Yeah, all that stuff was wild, man.
Yeah, you can't promote that now. No cools and stuff like that. You
man, that's probably for the best.
Yeah. Not always got addicted to cigarettes, but we did have the candy cigarettes and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. A lot of that stuff never changes. But.
Yeah.
So that's that's a cool scene, and it represents all that. Whatever stupid mistake you did, theirs was chewing tobacco, but it represents whatever anybody did. That's the thing. That's like we said. That's why it's such a universal movie, is because somebody did something when they were 10 and they remember it. Theirs was chew, but whatever it was, drinking a beer, or getting sick, whatever it was. This represented it. This movie is just about like representing like a bigger picture, and it's why it's so great. It's timeless. It's one of the true timeless movies. Like it's a legendary. Before you get me out of here, where do you kind of? I don't want to pin you down to like an actual ranking, but roughly where do you put this in your all-time sports movies?
It would be in I definitely. It'd be like you got tier 1 and tier 2. It'd be in that in between right now. I'm a big fan of Friday Night Lights, Remember the Titans, but when it comes to this movie, it would be in there. I know a lot of people. One movie I can't stand anymore is Rudy. I overseen it too many times.
I mean, I can't mess with Rudy. People from the Midwest, you either love Rudy or you don't. And I'm from the most of Ohioans are the don't crowd. So I'm not sitting here saying that the movie's like terrible or anything, but we just don't mess around with Rudy that much. So that definitely, like I get its point, but I just that dude's annoying.
Yeah, I feel like Notre Dame fans, that's probably their that's tier 1.
Yeah.
But I just you seen it was good, but if you keep seeing it over and over again, you're like, okay.
I think baseball movie wise, I think Major League is the best baseball movie ever made, as far as just entertaining. Recently I tell you a movie I watched recently that's underrated is how did I lose about the female baseball players and A League of Their Own. That's a good movie. That's actually, you talk about a 90s movie. That's very 90s. But it's a pretty good movie. But I think Major League's my number 1. But this movie, it may not be the best sports in the movie, but it is a sports movie. Like it is definitely Man, it crawled up there for me the more I watch it. Like, I think it's pushing. I definitely in my top 10. I'll put it in my top 10.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be in the top 10. One of those movies.
Yeah,
I
it's
know,
it's really good.
yeah, there's nothing in this movie where I was like, okay, I wish this wasn't in there. And everything, like, it was well written and everything. Kids were actually kids. They weren't like some typical like whiny crying and are just over exaggerated kids. They were just like normal kids you were friends with back when you were a kid.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's a movie about friends. It's really a movie about friends is what it's about. And it translates to anything. You could take out baseball and put in whatever friends do together. It doesn't matter whether it doesn't matter what the what the bond is between them, what they're doing. It's just about friends and conversations you have and bouncing things off each other and accomplishing stuff and coming up with schemes and lying and a little bit of cussing and having fun and laughing, and all these things. It just happens to be baseball, but it could be anything. It could be literally anything. It could be science fair and still be just as good a movie. It doesn't, but
I agree. And then when it comes to this movie, you don't have to be a fan of the sport to enjoy this movie.
Yeah.
It's just,
there you go.
It'll give you nostalgia feel like, okay, this reminds me when I was a kid or something like that.
Yeah.
That's one of the main things about this movie I love.
Absolutely.
We definitely got to be. We're definitely gonna do another show. I gotta look back on the list again and like the percentage of votes, because the main votes, I know the percentage said on Twitter, but the ones when I did it on Facebook, everybody said Sandlot. You got to start Sandlot. I was like, you know what, we're gonna do Sandlot, and I had to reach out to you. I knew you would be down to do it. So
there's no sports movie I haven't seen a million times and have feelings on it. I saw you snuck He Got Game in there.
Yeah. So, that's the next movie. That's number 2, second in votes.
That's I love that movie. Man, I love that movie.
I watched that as a kid, and I watched it when I was in high school. So it's gonna be fun.
It's different. Yeah, that's a whole lot different than Sandlot. That's we're gonna. Opposite. You know what? That's a good idea for you to do, because it's the opposite of Sandlot. Because it's not for everybody. It is definitely offensive. It is definitely like polarizing. And I love it, but I'm saying like it's not a universal movie. Like, but
so episode 2. So episode
I can't. Oh man, that's I love them. Well, Denzel's I'm pretty sure he's my favorite actor of all time. I love everything Denzel does, and that's my favorite Denzel movie. Like, he was my profile pic for probably 2 years on Twitter. Jake Shuttlesworth was my profile picture for like 2 years. Like, really? That movie probably ruined my son's life. My son's got a great life, but so I raised him how Jake, I thought, would have raised Jesus if he wouldn't have went to prison. Like, that's how I raised my son. Like, you ask my son if I ever let him win at basketball, and he will tell you straight up no, until he beat me. And he beat me just like Jesus beats Jake eventually, and it stung. But I made him earn it, and he finally earned it. And I took one, but there was nothing given on the basketball court in my house. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but I never treat my wife like Jake treated his wife. No, that I want to be clear about that. I don't agree with how Jake be treated. Yeah, Jake wasn't a good guy. I'm not saying I admire Jake. I'm just saying I love the movie and I love Denzel.
Yeah, the teaching the way of basketball, it was the thing that you liked about it.
Yeah.
But it does stuff. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Jake made some questionable decisions. Man, that movie's got Rick Fox in it.
Oh, man, got a lot of guys in there.
That movie's good, man. The speech. I'm a Spike Lee fan, so that's probably my. I don't think it's not my number 1 Spike joint, but it's like 2. I think Do the Right Thing will always be 1. I think it's a little more important movie, I guess, for lack of a better term. But He Got Game is probably 2. Man, I love that movie.
Yeah. Now we're talking about that got to be episode 2. We're gonna do the Universal movie, and then we're gonna do episode 2 controversial movie. We're gonna
Yo, yeah, there you go. That's Spike, man. That's how he brings it.
Yeah, so that's definitely got to be the movie. But I appreciate you for being on the show.
Thanks for asking, man.
Absolutely. So we're gonna probably do it next week. I don't know what day you're free, but we gotta do it on He Got Game. I'm even more excited to check this movie out again and talk about it.
It's on well, I'm trying to think of where it is right now. I think it's on streaming, like the real version of it somewhere, because you got to watch the unedited version. It just is. That's part of the movie. Like it's an R-rated movie for sure, but it's it pays off. It's awesome. Ray Allen, great performance by Ray Allen. And what's funny is, like, again, I don't know if you remember, but like that was Ray Allen coming out of college. Like we all knew Ray Allen. Like, this would be like Cooper Flagg showing up in a Spike Lee movie next year. See how crazy that sounds? That's how big of a deal this was. It was Ray Allen, Allen Iverson. That was the two biggest basketball stars in the country.
I thought he at least said with the Milwaukee Bucks by that.
He was, but he made it like, because it takes a while to make a movie. So he was like, probably after his rookie year with Milwaukee, the movie came out, but we all knew him from UConn, because back then you watched college basketball like that. Like, so everybody knew, it'd be like Quinn Ewers been in a movie next year. Like, it don't matter what team he's on. You're going to remember him for playing for Texas. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like that's how it was with Ray Allen. I was like, wait a minute, the same Ray Allen, like from UConn, Ray Allen.
Yeah, and then when you think about Ray Allen's game from when he was with the Milwaukee Bucks,
bro,
to the Miami Heat, totally different guy.
I don't know if any players ever changed that much in a good career than Ray Allen did when he went to the Boston Celtics and became a completely different player. Still great, completely different player from the time he went to the Celtics on. He was a slasher but the game changed too, and he just changed with the game. He's like, all right, I'll just start shooting threes. I'll shoot the most. Like, the way he flipped the switch in his career, fascinating. Ray Allen is a truly Hall of Fame teammate, because he just did whatever the team needed and won. What a great player.
Yeah, I'm glad he got to get some rings too, because he definitely deserved the way he played.
Yeah. But yeah, Ray Allen, like in college, like, if you could ever go back on YouTube and watch Ray Allen versus Allen Iverson back in would have been 94, I guess, 94 or 5. I think it's 95. They played against each other, and that was still the Big East. Like, you're talking like one of the last truly great Big East games, and Georgetown Allen Iverson was something different. I mean, that was special.
Yes,
great matchup.
Sure, I'm probably going to check that out after this show. But I appreciate you, Jeff, for being on the show.
Absolutely, man.
We'll be back next week to talk about He Got Game. We're not gonna surprise y'all. There's gonna be a different conversation next week, but it's gonna be a good one.
And if anybody's gonna go watch He Got Game, like it's a real movie. It's a real rated R movie.
Yeah,
they got porn stars and everything.
I forgot about that, but it's on. I think it's on Prime Video. That's what I think.
Yeah, I might watch it tonight. I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, it doesn't have to. It doesn't have commercial, but here or there, but it's a good movie overall.
Oh yeah, big state rules.
Yes, sir. This has been Tacos and Touchdowns. Y'all have a good one.
You're killing me, Smalls.